The celestial harmony drifted through the Andromeda trade routes, a vessel of gleaming alloys and crystalline viewports that housed representatives from 17 different species. Captain Velthar, a towering Krynith with fur arms and bioluminescent skin, prided himself on running the most diplomatically balanced crew in the galaxy. Every species had their role, their voice, their carefully negotiated position in the ship's hierarchy. Then the human arrived. David Torres stepped aboard with nothing but a duffel bag and a smile that seemed too casual for someone entering a vessel worth more than most planetary economies. Penelope Chen, the ship's human liaison officer, met him at the airlock with her usual efficiency. "Mr. Torres," she said, reviewing the data pad in her hands, "your application lists culinary arts as your primary qualification?" David nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Penelope's eyes narrowed. The Harmony needed an engineer, a weapons specialist, or at the very least, a xenobiologist. They had posted for critical positions. "And your secondary skills?" "I don't talk much, ma'am." David shifted his duffel bag. "But I can cook." Penelope stared at him for a long moment, then at the disaster that was the current crew meal schedule. The Vrin ate liquid nutrients. The Krynith required raw proteins at specific temperatures. The silicon-based crush consumed mineral compounds that smelled like burning circuits. Mealtimes had devolved into isolated feeding sessions, each species retreating to their quarters with prepackaged rations. "Works for me," Penelope said with a shrug that would have horrified Captain Velthar had he witnessed it. David set up his domain in what had been a secondary cargo bay. Within 3 rotations, he had transformed it into something the crew had never seen, a proper galley. Penelope watched with bemused curiosity as he installed equipment. She didn't recognize Earth standard ovens, grills, fermentation chambers, and what he called a smoker. "You're really doing this," she said, leaning against the door frame. Double quotes, "Yes, ma'am." David was elbow deep in calibrating an oven. "Figure if we're all stuck on this boat together, might as well eat together. They have completely different biologies. The Vrin can't process solid food." David looked up, his dark eyes thoughtful. "Can they taste?" Penelope consulted her datapad. "Their chemical receptors can detect flavor compounds in liquids. Then I can work with that." David returned to his calibrations. "Won't talk your ear off about it, though." True to his word, David said little. But he cooked. The first meal he served was simple, a beef broth for the humans, infused with aromatics. For the Vrin, he had created a nutrient suspension flavored with the same herbs, the molecular structure carefully adjusted. The Krynith received seared proteins with a charred crust that released umami compounds their receptors craved. The crush got their minerals, but ground and seasoned with trace elements that added complexity. Captain Velthar entered the newly christened dining hall skeptically. His species valued order, protocol, and clear communication. The silent human who merely cooked seemed like an anomaly at best, a liability at worst. But when he tasted his meal, truly tasted it, not just consumed it, something shifted. "This is..." Velthar's translator struggled to find the words. "Unexpected." David, serving at the counter, just nodded. "Glad you like it, sir." Round the hall, similar reactions rippled through the crew. The Vrin's chromatic display flickered in patterns that indicated pleasure. The crush's grinding mandibles slowed, savoring rather than simply processing. Even the notoriously difficult Slith, who communicated only through pheromones, released signals of contentment. Penelope ate her soup slowly, watching the room. Crew members who hadn't shared space in weeks were now sitting at the same tables, drawn together by something as simple as a meal. "You're quiet," she said to David as he cleared plates. "Most humans I know can't shut up." David smiled slightly. Figured the food should do the talking. Over the following months, the celestial harmony changed. David's meals became the cornerstone of the ship's daily routine. He learned each species' preferences, dietary restrictions, and cultural food taboos. More importantly, he learned what brought them joy for the Vrin navigator's hatching day. He created a bioluminescent gelatin dessert that glowed with the colors of their home nebula. For the Krynith security team, he smoked meats over wood from 17 different worlds, each cut seasoned to honor their respective colonies. When tensions flared between the Crush miners and the Slith engineers. David prepared a fusion meal that required cooperation to eat properly, dishes meant to be shared, components that complemented each other only when combined. Penelope found herself spending more time in the galley, ostensibly to provide feedback, but really because the space David had created felt different from the rest of the ship. It felt like home. "How did you know?" she asked one evening, watching him prepare dough for what he called bread, a human staple. She'd explained to the curious crew members, "Know what, ma'am? That this would work. That food could be this." She gestured at the dining hall beyond, where Averin and Akrineth were engaged in animated conversation, their meals half finished as they talked. David considered the question while kneading the dough, his hands working in steady, practiced rhythms. "My grandmother used to say that you can't hate someone whose food you've broken bread with." Figured it was worth testing on a galactic scale. That's surprisingly profound for someone who claims not to talk much. "Well," David said with a rare grin, "I've been saving up." When the Celestial Harmony docked at Proxima Station for its annual review, Captain Velthar's report caused a stir among the Galactic Council. Crew retention, 100%. Efficiency ratings, up 47%. Interspecies conflicts, reduced to 0. The Council demanded to know his secret. "We hired a human," Velthar explained simply. "An engineer, a diplomat, a cook." The Council members exchanged glances, or the equivalent, for their various species. "He doesn't say much," Velthar continued, his bioluminescence pulsing with what might have been amusement. "But he can cook, and apparently that works." Back on the Harmony, David prepared dinner service while Penelope helped plate dishes. The dining hall was already filling with crew members eager for the evening meal. "You know, you've revolutionized interspecies relations, right?" Penelope said. "The Council will want to study your methods, write papers, create protocols." David shrugged, that same casual gesture he'd given when he first arrived. "They can do what they want. I'll be here, cooking." And as the crew of 17 species gathered to share another meal, talking and laughing and simply being together, it was clear that sometimes the most profound changes came not from grand speeches or complex diplomacy, but from the simple act of feeding someone with care. David Torres didn't talk much, but his food spoke volumes.